The Cardinals steal a win in the Steel City, a 24-10 victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. When a game lasts more than 4 hours, there's plenty to talk about, which is exactly what we're going to do here on Morning Scramble, presented by Verizon from the SeatGeek studios. Alongside Jody Jackson and Zach Gershman, I'm Dani Sureck. It's always a pleasure and an honor to sit with the two of you, see your beautiful faces.
Stop it.
It's even better when it's a Victory Monday, Zach.
Nothing is better than Victory Monday. I mean, the fact that you go across the country from coast to coast and you come back, and that must have been a great plane ride back, because anytime you are able to fly back to the Valley of the Sun to get away from the rain and come away with a victory, I mean, Jody, Victory Monday, there's very few things that taste better than that.
Yeah, Dani, you've dried out, I see, looking good, and it had to be a little chilly, obviously, not ideal conditions, and yet, you know, that's the feeling when you go out there as a 2-10 team, the Steelers at 7-4, and you're the underdog, you're on the road, and then you have these rain delays, the conditions do not favor your team, and when you come away with that win, it is such a great feeling for these guys. And Dani, we were talking before we came on the air, and the word you used, validate, that's the word I thought of too, just it's validating what they're doing to be able to come away with the win. And really, you know, when it was 17-3, I'm thinking, you know, I mean, they still had to fight. They had to continue. You never know what's going to happen, especially in those conditions. But they beat them pretty handily, which was fun to watch.
This Cardinals offense had to fight against a top Steelers defense in the league. 282 total yards for the Cardinals, almost split right down the middle in the pass and run game, something Arizona hasn't been able to find much success in these last couple of weeks. Jody, how did the Cardinals find that balanced success Sunday in Pittsburgh?
Well, I think that they did it with physicality, and that was one thing that I had said on Friday. Was the question that was posed to me was, how can the Cardinals win this game? And, you know, for me, it was just, can they match the physicality of the Pittsburgh Steelers? And you know what? They did. Not on every single play. It was a battle back and forth. But many times the Cardinals were able to do that. And they were able to do that on both sides of the ball. And, you know, James Conner and this running game, 38, rushes versus just the 23 passing attempts. That's more than balanced. That's dominating on the ground. And I know you're going to talk, Dani, more about James Conner, but yeah, I mean, he had a day, and what a day it was for him to return there. But yeah, this is the kind of thing that I'm sure Drew Petzing would like to see more of. Kyler Murray certainly did enough. I liked that he protected the ball. I liked that after going 1-5 as far as those first 5 attempts and only completing 1 pass, he didn't let it get him down. He should have had potentially 2 touchdowns to Rondale Moore, which I always have to point out, the quarterback stats, they don't always show up on certain plays that either were drops or, in that case, a holding call. So, you know, Kyler's numbers didn't look great, but he did enough in this game, Zach.
Yeah, it's really just that balance between having James Conner, being able to go under center, utilize the play action, and obviously to have Kyler Murray's skill set and ability in the pocket and also to get out of the pocket. But, I mean, I think I've talked about this before, and it's the fact that as James Conner goes, the offense goes. And once you could see that first half, you really could not see much going out of James Conner, but for him to put up the type of numbers that he did at the end of the day. And I know we spoke to Drew Petzing during the week on Tuesday, and he told the media that in the hindsight, yeah, you look back at that game against the Rams, and you probably say, I should have given James Conner more carries, but what a homecoming it was for the Pennsylvania native.
Not only were the Cardinals balanced, they also played complementary football. The defense has done a nice job creating turnovers the last few weeks. Offense has struggled to put points on the board following those. Defense had a crucial goal line stand at the 1-yard line, and the offense followed it up with a 99-yard touchdown drive, a drive in which Arizona went 5 for 5 on 3rd down. Zach, what finally clicked there?
I think it was the fact that you were able to bounce off of tackles, somebody like Michael Carter on 3rd down to go for 19 yards, but also just the ability to go back to things that didn't fully work. I mean, I like to go back to that Trey McBride touchdown that was reviewed, and the call was reversed. But you went right back to Trey McBride the next play. It's the ability to say, okay, this did not work a couple different times. We got stopped. We talked a little bit about K1's resiliency, knowing that some of the passes were not fully connecting. But for them to just continue going and going, it's the second time that the Cardinals have had a 99-yard drive this season. And to do it with 2 different quarterbacks in K1 in only 4 games, to come back out and really do have this type of performance, especially after the criticism he got against the Los Angeles Rams, it was definitely a good one to see.
Quarterback Kyler Murray, 13 for 23, 145 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. Jody, you touched on it. Numbers don't tell the full story. How did Kyler Murray lead this offense to success?
Yeah, Kyler Murray just kept his composure, I think, in a game that, again, was setting up for the opponent, the weather conditions, that defense of the Steelers, which we all talked about coming into this game, what they bring and how good they are and how physical they are. And yet, despite, again, not being able to connect on 4 of his first 5 pass attempts, 0 for 4 on the first third down conversions, and then all of a sudden ripping off, I think, 8 of 9, 9 of 11, something like that. I mean, they ended up 10 of 17 on third down. And that's something that's been missing, I'd say, all season, but this is just his 4th game. So definitely a building block for Kyler Murray. And he talked a little bit after the game about the fact that, this is still just his 4th game. And you can see that that's on his mind. He's still trying to get a hold of this offense, but that he is feeling more comfortable. And that's the thing to me that was important in this game is despite all the things that were going on, he was able to maintain, he was able to go out there and say after the game, hey, I felt more comfortable in this one. And so that's a good sign. But when he can hand the ball off, it's always a good thing. But for Kyler overall, it had to be good again for him to be able to get this win after what happened last week.
Yeah, definitely. And I think something that is going to kind of go under the radar because ultimately the Cardinals recovered is Kyler had 2 fumbles. And that's something that chemistry is going to still need to continue to develop and build with James Conner, your wide receivers, your tight ends. Everybody is going to need to continue to develop with that one. But to go back to the third downs, just the fact that the third down is what has hurt the Cardinals all season long. And for them to go into this one, and on that 99-yard drive to go 5 for 5 on third downs, it's that type of resiliency. And this is a group, when you're playing a Pittsburgh team that is as hard-nosed and blue-collar as could be, they play a gritty, not pretty type mindset. The Cardinals took it right to them, and they equally played that gritty, not pretty, and it turned into a win, Dani.
Cardinals released veteran tight end Zach Ertz earlier in the week. Trey McBride stepped up, continues to be a reliable target for Kyler Murray. Of the 11 completions, 8 of those went to Trey McBride. 11 of those went to tight ends. 11 of those 13 completions. Jody, what do the Cardinals have in McBride as a true number 1 tight end?
I mean, right now he is the number 1 target in the passing game. Dani, you mentioned it. 8 of the 13 attempts went to McBride. And yes, Hollywood Brown's been fighting through a heel injury all season. The injuries have hurt on the with the wide receiver room for sure. But I think, Trey McBride is clearly a guy that is a physical, as Kyler mentioned after the game, he called him a matchup nightmare. And he is. He's a beast. He's a huge target. He catches the ball. He's reliable. And he doesn't go down easily. And so why wouldn't you throw him the ball, right? Especially, I think, hopefully that will help in the red zone as well, because they really haven't had that guy in the red zone the last few years, honestly. And we had hoped it would be Zach Ertz. And so the progression is on with Zach Ertz gone. Trey McBride is the guy, Zach, and he seems to be literally taking it and running with it.
Very few safeties and linebackers in the NFL are going to be able to guard a guy like Trey McBride. In college at Colorado State was the Mackey Award winner, one of the top tight ends in the game. And to come in here, and I know when Zach Ertz landed on IR, a lot of us were asking, okay, is this kind of Trey McBride's breakout season? If it is a breakout season, then what does that mean for Zach Ertz? The team obviously decided to part ways with the 11-year veteran in Zach Ertz, and they felt very confident in Trey McBride, and that's the first thing Jonathan Gannon told the media, is he said, we feel very confident with the people in that room. And it's not just Trey McBride. You have a vet like Jeff Swayman there, and then you bring in an Elijah Higgins, who made an impact in this one as well. He had, he was the second leading receiver with 21 yards.
Higgins has been good.
He has been good, and he's also been a target for Kyler Murray to go to. We've seen it since K1 has gone back that he has hit Elijah Higgins in at least every single game. You didn't really see as much of that in the first couple weeks of the NFL season when the Cardinals claimed Elijah Higgins. But for Trey McBride to come in, he has that confidence to take over this type of role. And statistically, he's ranking in the top 5, top 7 in every single type of category you could look for in a tight end.
Strong tight ends play is crucial, especially when the receivers have been playing sporadically. Hollywood Brown left the game in the second half with a heel injury that had been plaguing him earlier in the week, which kept him out of practice all week. Didn't log a single reception. Greg Dortch and Rondale Moore, 1 reception each. While it's crucial to have those tight ends, Jody, you need to see your receivers step up, especially with the rookie Michael Wilson still nursing a shoulder injury, unable to play again.
Yeah, going into this one, I didn't know about Hollywood Brown, so I wasn't really counting on him. I know he's been fighting through this heel thing kind of all season, and that's difficult to do. So, props to him for trying to get out there and play. But I did think Greg Dortch would be more of a factor. Again, Rondell Moore, the first one was pretty much a drop, and the other one was a juggling catch, which was really a nice catch, but the holding penalty on Carter O'Donnell, I can't speak, negated that one. So, Rondell Moore clearly is that deep threat, and we saw that at the start of the Houston game. But yeah, you're right, Dani. You have to have more options at the wide receiver position. I think it's going to be an area of need for this Cardinals team. Through the draft, possibly free agency, see what they can do to add to it. But you hope Michael Wilson can get healthy. Again, Zach, we were really looking at him as a promising wide receiver training camp early in the season. He was just getting acclimated, and then unfortunately these injuries have plagued him.
Injury prone has been a term that was used to describe Michael Wilson when he was at Stanford. And unfortunately, it's kind of lingered on into the NFL. And he is still a very promising wide receiver. Yeah. And I do think that he is still going to be a person that is kind of in the centerpiece of something you want to look forward to, knowing that you have that sort of target, a 6-foot body that you're able to bring out there. And the fact that he's been battling through it, and the fact is you could tell he wants to get out there, because in that Atlanta game, he was saying before the game when he was on the injury report, he was a little hesitant about it, but he said, I want to get out there, I want to play with K1. And when that happened, you were able to see him out there. And unfortunately, injuries are part of the game, and on both sides of the ball, the Cardinals have not been affected more by injuries than any other team in the NFL. But you got to hope that a guy like Greg Dortch, although he did make an incredible and clutch catch in the game against the Steelers, you got to hope that you start to see him start to spring in a little bit more, Rondell Moore hauling in some of those receptions, because if a guy like Hollywood Brown is out, and potentially Michael Wilson for however long that could potentially be, because we've already seen him miss a handful of games, you got to hope that those other guys do step up.
And I'm not discounting Michael Wilson for sure. I didn't want to make it sound like that, but I think you just can't have enough. The good offenses in this league have multiple weapons, even, guys that you talk about as stars in the league. And yeah, it's great that Trey McBride is that guy, but you can certainly, we'd welcome 2 or 3 of them at the wide receiver position.
Quite the homecoming for running back James Conner returning to Pittsburgh. Conner attended Pitt, played all of his home games at now Acrisure Stadium, was drafted by the Steelers in 2017. I have to say, from pregame, seeing all of the fans in Conner jerseys, the posters by Steelers fans with James Conner posters, you can tell that city loves James Conner just as much as he loves it back. Conner finished the game with 105 rushing yards on 25 carries, 2 rushing touchdowns. This comes a week after only having 6 carries against the Rams. Jody, the Cardinals established the run. They handed the rock to Conner and let him do the rest.
Yeah, and look, 6 carries, that is not ideal in any way, shape, or form, and that's not what Drew Petzing wants to do. But they did get behind, and maybe, looking back, Petzing would have done things a little bit differently, but it is much easier when you have a little bit of control in the game. And James Conner can take that control that you have and turn it into domination out there. And Dani, what's not to like about James Conner? You guys know, you deal with him all the time. He, not only the way that he runs, but just the person that he is, everything he's been through, and his story was documented a lot this week, of course, at Pitt, his cancer diagnosis, beating cancer, what he had to go through with chemotherapy. And so you know that he's a fighter, and I think you see him take that on the field. I think, that's part of who he is. It's part of the way that he runs the ball, the stiff arm that we again saw in Pittsburgh, and just, I think, yes, he did have some help from the offensive line yesterday. That's something that everyone needs. He can't do it all by himself, even though Zach, he certainly tries. But when that came together, and I think it was a mentality yesterday, that is dangerous, and you can only hope that they can continue to do that in these last games.
And James Conner is very soft-spoken. That's something we've gotten to learn about him. He's going to show a lot of emotion on the field when he's talking to the media. It's not going to be nearly as much emotion. But to see him go back, and there were a couple times where he couldn't help but crack a smile, because to go back to recognize the type of adversity he had to go through, his resiliency, and to go back and see tons of familiar faces walk through those same doors that he walked into. And as he said, I was just a baby just walking and going into Pitt, because University of Pitt and the Pittsburgh Steelers share a facility together, both their practice facility and the stadium at Acrisure Stadium. So the fact that he was able to go back in his first time as a visitor, as was Kelvin Beachum as well, so he also went back to Pittsburgh. So got to give him some love there. But for James Conner to put in the type of performance that he did, the 2 touchdowns, and to do it in front of that crowd in that type of environment when all the rain's pouring down, nothing was going to stop James Conner. I think that's very indicative of the story of his life.
Post-game tackle Paris Johnson Jr. said that while it's great to always block for James Conner and have a performance the way he did Sunday, it was even more special for that offensive line to help Conner have the type of performance he did in a stadium and a city that means so much to him. The Cardinals defense had another good performance. They continue to stack good performances week after week, holding the Steelers to just 3 points until a garbage time touchdown. Pittsburgh just 4 for 11 on third downs. Jody, this Cardinals defense kept them in the game until the offense got rolling in the second quarter.
Yeah, there were some big plays on defense by this Arizona Cardinals team. It was good to see Kevin Strong Jr. back in there. Again, this is a group that has had some injuries really at every position now when you consider Kaiser White is out at linebacker. But they have maintained and they have continued to go out there with that competitive spirit. And look, the Pittsburgh Steelers, we all know that their offense was not operating at a very high level, at least in the passing game. Kenny Pickett had not really put up numbers all season long, and yet came into this game after a breakout game really by their offense, over 400 yards for the first time in a very long time after letting go of offensive coordinator Matt Canada. And so, the new coaching that they were getting was clearly helping them against the Bengals the week before. Then Pickett gets injured, and you've got Mitch Trubisky, who I think they did a nice job of just trying to confuse him. And, he was coming in a bad spot and the team was down. But yes, so I guess what I'm saying is, disclaimer here, they were pretty one-dimensional, but it's a physical Pittsburgh team. Najee Harris is a beast. You're talking 240 pounds, a guy that can take it to you. And in fact, and I know you're going to talk a little bit about it, but there was a particular play where they took it to this Steelers offense and to Najee Harris. So you have to love what you see from this defense, not only the coaching by Nick Rawlis and that staff, but the way the guys came up in a big way. Dante Stills being back in that area, being a West Virginia guy. I just love it. And I'm glad that they got that validation again with a win.
The biggest key, in my opinion, when it came to this defense was Josh Woods. I mean, it's the second full game that he took over that green dot, and he was the quarterback of that defense. But he also filled the void that Kaiser has of being that emotional leader, and to lead the team with 11 tackles and to really be calling out the plays and anchor down on that defense. It was important. And you never want to see an injury that takes somebody out of the game, but that's a part of the game at that. And Mitch Trubisky came in, and the Cardinals did exactly what they needed to do. They stopped him, they limited him, and they were really not able to get anything going until the latter half of the game.
There's a lot to love about living in the desert this time of year. One of those things, very unlikely to have a weather delay at a game.
And we're in a dome.
That's true. Well, it can open.
It could.
But weather delays a lot less likely. The Cardinals had 2 in Pittsburgh, almost 90 minutes of a weather delay. The first coming, piggybacking off halftime. When you're sitting in the locker room, we heard from the players, they were trying to stay busy, freestyling, dancing a little bit. You still have to stay locked in and have that mindset. Zach, for the Cardinals to come out twice the way they did says a lot about the mental strength and leadership in that locker room.
And one of the things when we were talking ahead of time about what our turning point might be, the one thing that kept popping to my mind, it's not my turning point, but it's something worth mentioning, is the fact that you came out there after the second, intermission weather delay, and it's like you did not take your foot off the pedal at all.
It was like a hockey game, intermission.
Exactly. They came right in, and they did exactly what they needed to do. And to stay loose and to stay locked in, especially when you could very much say, we're from the desert right now. We don't want to go out in the cold, the rain. It's disgusting out there. But, I mean, I feel like for some of those players, that's the type of game that you've learned to love. And that's
True
the type
football
of exactly.
weather.
And that just that hard nose, you're going to see the smoke coming out when you're taking the breath because of the type of cold out there. The fresh air. It's what makes football, and I feel like that's what has had so many of these players. They've fallen in love with the game through that, and to play it in the best stage, the biggest stage of them all in the NFL, it's quite awesome.
How did the two of you stay busy during those weather delays?
Well, it's funny. We were just like waiting, for it to come back. It was kind of like, okay. And then, on television, of course, there were some other options, right? Where there was Houston and I'm kind of blanking on the matchups now. There was Houston and
Denver.
Yep.
And then the Patriots and the Chargers, which were, offensively challenging to watch. Some of those offenses there, but no, I was just kind of waiting. And then on the radio broadcast, we heard one of the Cardinals folktales, which I tuned into a little bit. It was fantastic, the Tillman Locker story. So, I know some of the listeners out there probably heard that as well. So good rain delay programming too by Cardinals Productions.
I mean, I was in the same boat watching the games on TV. I gotta say, listening to Pash and Wolf and then Craig and Ken and just hearing everybody talk, and obviously you mix in the folktales with it. It's a lot of cool stuff. But Dani, you were the one that was actually there. You
what did you do?
braved the elements. This is more for your segment.
I don't want to say that I braved elements the way that a lot of our team did actually out on the field. I was lucky to be warm and dry in the press box. I did get a game of Go Fish in with our social media coordinator. Try to stay busy there. I was chatting Darren Urban's ear off, so keeping him annoyed during our weather delays, because what else am I going to do?
Did they have hot chocolate at least?
I didn't see any hot chocolate
unless
I missed
coffee,
it.
Maybe.
The halftime chicken tenders, though, were a nice touch. Let's pull out the whiteboards, get into our players of the game.
How's Calvisi? Did he survive down there?
I haven't had a chance to ask. He looked like by the time we boarded the plane to come home, he had dried off enough.
I hope he had
good.
a heavy, winter rain, waterproof parka jacket, whatever you want to call it.
Now he braved the elements,
That's
so
right.
you got to give Paul
That's
some.
That's why he's the best. Zach, who is your player of the game?
I went with Kevin Strong. Kevin Strong is one of those players that you don't realize how much you miss him until he's not there. And against Los Angeles Rams, he was not on the field. He was inactive with the knee injury. And then he comes back in this one, was limited all throughout the week in practice. And to put up the 5 tackles, the 3 solo ones, and the big-time stuff on 4th and 1 at the 1-yard line, him and Jesse Luketa coming in together and bringing him down, that ultimately led to the 99-yard drive. For Kevin Strong to come in there and be that big body, number 92 stepped in there, and he made an impact.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite play of the game, honestly. I mean, that was just awesome. I'm going with a guy we talked about a little bit already. It is Trey McBride, and for many of the reasons we spoke about, just the physical matchup that he brings, and as Zach talked about, safeties, linebackers, hard to cover a guy like Trey McBride. And so, but on that 99-yard drive, again, you didn't need a lot here in this game. The defense played pretty well. You did need that 99-yard drive, though, and there are his numbers on for the game: 8 for 89. But that drive, 17-yard completion, 12 yards, 15 yards, and then the 5-yard touchdown, which he had to basically score twice, which showed, again, the resolve by Kyler to go to him and Trey to make that happen. But I just love the fact that he's embracing this role now to be the guy. And again, a game like this where offense was at a premium, he stepped up big, Dani, and I hope that he'll continue to do that for the rest of this season and years to come.
McBride joins Jackie Smith and Doug Marsh as the only tight ends in franchise history to surpass 600 receiving yards in a season. Very impressive the way he has stepped up.
Good list to be a part of.
Yes.
I went with running back James Conner, my King James. I'm sorry, LeBron. I did give him a nice little crown. A spectacular homecoming for Conner. He had a slow start in the game. Wasn't able to really get downhill very easily. I liked the way the Cardinals stuck with the run. They stuck with Conner in the game, and he was able to turn out 105 rushing yards on those 25 carries. A great individual performance, a great team win. Really embodies the mindset of this team, the fight that they want to have moving forward.
It's the type of storybook endings that you love to see. And for James Conner to put on the show this type of way, to see a lot of familiar faces, and to start off the game where he was not getting a lot of different touches, and then when he was, they were not really translating towards a lot of different yards. And I'm going to give Darren Urban some heat, because he did tweet out earlier when the game was going on saying that this is going to be one of those games where you're not sure if Conner's numbers are going to really be up there. And then he tweeted afterwards saying, I lied. So I'll give you, Darren, you got your love right back from me. But for this one, to see James Conner put on this type of performance in his hometown, in his home city, is incredible.
Yeah, 25 for 105, averaging 4.2. So again, he continues to average around 4 yards a carry. That's not always easy to do in this league, and it was higher than that earlier in the season, even before the injury.
Honorary mention for kicker Matt Prater, who tied his own franchise record, 7 field goals of 50-plus yards. He had a 51-yarder in Sunday's win over the Steelers. That is 4 straight games with a 50-plus yard attempt by Prater. He's made 7 of 9. Talk about trusting your kicker, Zach.
Yeah, no big deal. I mean, it's just scratch that. It's an incredibly big deal to have that sort of piece back there, that sort of leg where you know that you don't have to go super far down the field to just get into field goal range. You know you have some length with Matt Prater out there. And I think special teams as a whole, mixing with Blake Gillikin, who right now is on pace to be the franchise leader in punts yards per average, the special teams unit led by Jeff Rogers has been killing it.
Let's go back to the third quarter for the turning point in Sunday's game. It's still a 1-score game. Zach, what happened that secured the win for the Cardinals?
See, it's funny. My dad went to Pitt, and he always told me about the rivalry between Pitt and West Virginia. And to see the West Virginia kid, the Mountaineer, in Dante Stills, to be in Pittsburgh and to recover a fumble that Mitch Trubisky bobbled the snap, and Dante Stills was able to recover the fumble, which ultimately led to one of James Conner's touchdowns. To see it happen in Pittsburgh, and I know, Dani, you spoke with him on Sideline Exchange, and it's the game that was closest to home for him. So for him to go out there, and that's when you start to feel like, okay, if the Cardinals are able to put up points, then the game starts to separate a little bit. And the game started to separate a little bit when it went from 10-3 to then 17-3.
Another example of complimentary football. Let's pull the whiteboards back out for songbirds. So we don't talk about each other's songs.
No.
We try to actually hide them, right? So.
I'm curious to see if anybody else chose the same song as me, because in my mind, there's really only one right answer.
Now that concerns me.
I know, I definitely don't have that, I guess, because I feel like this is a little random, but it's supposed to be how we feel, right?
It is. Jody, so what's your random song?
All right, so this is, I went with Survivor with Eye of the Tiger. I don't know why, I just was hearing the beat in my head, just listening to that, just as this team went into Pittsburgh, stole a win. What are the words I wrote? Just a man and his will to survive, the thrill of the fight, all these things that come to mind in this kind of a battle, scrappy, gritty win in the rain with the delays. And I love the song, Eye of the Tiger. It's, I know it's a Philly Rocky reference, not Pittsburgh, but it's still Pennsylvania.
It's all in the Keystone State.
Is that okay?
We'll allow it.
Do you guys allow that one? It's a great song, right?
As the Pennsylvania kid, I'll give the seal of approval for that
good.
one. So I decided to, last week, Dani, went with an LA theme, and I was questioning why I did not do the same exact thing. So I went right back to my roots. I went right down to the Keystone State with PA. I went Work Hard, Play Hard by Wiz Khalifa. Reason why I did that is because Jonathan Gannon said when they got on the plane, through all the preparation that they spent throughout the week, when they got on the plane, Jonathan Gannon knew that this was going to be the result. You work hard, you play hard, and you win, and you come away with the win, and you come away with the big one against a playoff contender. So to work hard, play hard, and honestly celebrate pretty hard going into the bye week is definitely huge.
I cannot believe y'all did not join me in choosing Renegade by the Styx. Hello,
Renegade,
in Pittsburgh.
okay.
That's so uncalled
That's
for.
a good
Fourth
one.
quarter, Pittsburgh always plays that song when they need a crucial defensive stop. The fans are waving the terrible towels, even through the press box, which mutes a lot of the sound. You can hear them singing along to the song, and it really is a cool atmosphere, especially since the Cardinals don't get to play at Acrisure Stadium really ever. I went with that song just as a little extra push about this win.
Good one.
A little extra sting for the
Yeah, rubbing salt in the wound
The
type of
first
thing.
win there since 1969.
Yeah, before the NFL merger.
That's crazy.
Yep.
I know they don't play there. I know it's only been a handful of times they've played there, but
It was-
very cool.
yeah, 1985,
So were they all
one
still
other
there, or
time,
were they?
yeah.
That's the other cool thing. Is seeing the fans
There
leaving,
was a good
too.
amount of fans, which was still impressive to stay through 2 delays. The Cardinals responded well to Renegade with that clutch Greg Dortch catch to convert on a 3rd down. Post-game, head coach Jonathan Gannon said with this bye week, he wanted his players and coaches to reset and relax. I'm going to take a page out of Gannon's book, and I'm going to say the same to you. I want you to reset and relax. So I'm going to give you each the Monday off next week, mostly because the Cardinals don't have a game for us to talk about on Morning Scramble. Nonetheless, we're going to take a week off. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's always
I'm speechless.
well-deserved, the bye, right?
I had no idea this was going to happen.
You had no idea? Did you think we were just going to come in and pick songs?
I just
and
get
talk about them?
just songbirds about the season.
We will be back after the 49ers game. We hope you Cardinals fans enjoy your bye week. As always, news and coverage about the team on azcardinals.com as well as our social channels. For Jody Jackson and Zach Gershman, I'm Dani Sureck. Thanks so much for joining us here on Morning Scramble. We'll catch y'all next time after that 49ers game in 2 weeks.